Hello and welcome to the agenda. I am Ajay Kaul. In this program today, we will be discussing about the continuing standoff between India and China at the line of actual control. 4 months after China launched aggression against India on the Ladakh border, defense ministers of the two countries met in Moscow, marking the first ministerial level face-to-face interaction between the two countries amidst tensions. But clearly there was no concrete outcome on de-escalation and disengagement as differences persisted. Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh bluntly told his Chinese counterpart that it was the Chinese actions at the line of actual control that had violated bilateral agreements and understandings. He said China should work with India for complete disengagement at the earliest from all friction points. However, the Chinese side reportedly maintained belligerent stand and blamed India for the tensions. Given this attitude of China, what is the way forward? How should India make China to disengage? We will discuss such questions in the agenda today with former top army commander Lieutenant General Rameshwar Roy, who has served as Corps Commander in Jammu and Kashmir. But before we start our conversation, let us have a look at this small report.
In the face-to-face first ministerial level interaction, Defence Minister of India and China met in Moscow to discuss the heightened tension of the line of actual control. The military face-off at the Ladakh border has been going on for the last 4 months after China launched aggression to change the status quo there. China has amassed large number of troops at the line of actual control. As a defensive measure, India has also done the matching mobilization, while it continues to ask China to pull back its troops so that the face-off can end. India's message has been conveyed to China in several rounds of military and diplomatic talk over phone call and video conversation, but China refuses to relent. During the face-to-face meeting last night, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh told his Chinese counterpart General Wei Fenghe that actions of the Chinese troops, including amassing of large number of troops, their aggression behavior and attempts to unilaterally alter the status quo were in violation of the bilateral agreements and not in keeping with the understanding reached between the special representative of two sides. He stated clearly that while the Indian troops had always taken a very responsible approach toward border management, there should also be no doubt about our determination to protect India's sovereignty and territorial integrity, according to an official statement. Singh also said that China should work for de-escalation in border area in accordance with the bilateral agreement and protocol on maintenance of peace and tranquility in border areas, strictly respect and observe the line of actual control and should not make attempts to unilaterally change status quo. Singh said the current situation should be handled responsibly and neither side should take any further action that could either complicate the situation or escalate the matter in the border areas. The meeting, which lasted for 2 hours and 20 minutes, saw frank and in-depth discussion about the development in India-China border as well as on India-China relations, the statement said. Singh said the two sides should continue their discussion, including through diplomatic and military channels, to ensure complete disengagement and de-escalation and full restoration of peace and tranquility along the LAC at the earliest. The Chinese defense minister conveyed the Chinese side too desire to resolve the issues peacefully, the statement said. However, according to reports in government-run media in China, the Chinese defense minister put the blame for tensions on India. Such attitude is certainly going to make resolution difficult. Bureau Report.
So let's welcome our special guest General Roy to the program. Welcome to the program, sir.
Good evening and thank you. Thank you, Ajay.
So I will refer you to the meeting between Defense Minister and Chinese Defense Minister in Moscow. Apparently there has been no concrete outcome. How do you see this?
Ajay, see, the point is that nothing was expected of this meeting anyway. The Chinese are very good in, putting the blame on the others. It is they who had violated their perceived line of LAC and they had come beyond that towards the west. And when we have pointed this out to them, finally they say that no, it is all their area. Before even arriving at a consensus, they have presumed that it is all their area. Now, when we started our negotiations, they said that, if you recollect, they said that as far as we are concerned, negotiations are over. Now it is left up to India.
They said disengagement
India
is
kept
over.
on maintaining that negotiations are not over. They said from our side it's over. So the point is, as far as they are concerned, they are still maintaining the same stance. So the only possibility or only advantage that they are getting time and again when they are talking of that let us have the talks and let us have the talks, and now also the defense minister of both the countries have met in Moscow. They have maintained the same stance that as far as India is concerned, they are the aggressors and they have violated their sovereignty. And we are maintaining that no, it is they who have violated our sovereignty, because the point is that the LAC, line of actual control, that is not defined on the ground.
Right.
Okay, we say that if it is not defined, can we not sit down together and define it now? But they will not agree to this also. We have been having border talks with them. 22 rounds of border talks have taken place just to precisely fix this point as to what is the commonly agreed line of actual control, which subsequently can be made a border. But they have not accepted it. They have not agreed to this. So I don't think that we should have thought much about it, that these talks will take us anywhere.
But External Affairs Minister says that talks are the only way to resolve, and he is going to meet Chinese Foreign Minister next week. So what do you say on that?
See, whatever meetings can happen, all these ministers can keep meeting. But if you really ask me, it has to, the political direction has to come right from the top. Something like, if you recollect what happened after Doklam, that there was a Wuhan summit. Thereafter, there was a Malappuram summit. We are not knowing as to what happened during those summits. But in this case also, there has to be some such meeting where the issue of this transgression or issue of this so-called unilateral redefining the LOC that the China has done, this can be resolved. But anything short of that, we will just keep talking about it maybe for years together. Nothing is likely to come out of it, whether it is our foreign minister talking to his counterpart, their foreign minister, or our defense minister talking to his counterpart, their defense minister. I do not expect any outcome of such talks at any given point of time, at least in near future.
But
and if we talk of a distant future, then the status quo, which has already been changed on the ground, this will continue. And as far as Chinese positions are concerned, they will continue to strengthen their position. That there is no hope that we can have to evict them by force thereafter, after so many years.
But the two summits you mentioned earlier about Wuhan and Gujarat, Malappuram, sorry, but those were already scheduled. This time it is now, there are no scheduled summit. And now the issue is about who will seek talks, who will blink.
My sense is that as these talks are going on, at some level or the other, with the defense ministers, with the foreign ministers, and if you are aware, there has been 5 rounds of talk at the brigade commander level also. All these talks slowly may lead you to preparation of a groundwork based on which could be a similar summit which can happen. But the moot point is, will they withdraw status quo ante? And my answer to that is that no, a big no. Chinese are not going to go back to status quo ante as it was in April, because they have come fully prepared to be where they are. And not only that, if my sense is right, they will not stay at this point itself. They will like to push it more and more towards the west. If we go by the action which occurred on 29th and 30th of August, they are saying that we have violated the sovereignty of their country. Fact of the matter is that we are maintaining that we have stayed on our own side of the LAC. Now, first point is, let us define the LAC. Are we talking of our perceived line of LAC, or are we talking of Chinese perceived line of LAC? Unless that point is clarified, it is very difficult to say who has violated whose sovereignty on the ground.
So, but there is, as you rightly mentioned, about defining the LAC. There is not even a mention about that. Nobody is even talking about that. Let us define the LAC, where it lies, isn't it?
That exactly is the point, Ajay, and that is why I'm very strongly firm in my mind that as far as the Chinese are concerned, they have come with full preparation, be it Depsang, be it Hot
Galwan.
Spring area, be it Galwan, be it Pingongso, be it Depchok, be it Chumar, all these places, wherever they have made the ingress or they have strengthened their positions, they have done it in a manner that they are here to stay and they will not go back no matter what level of talks happen or take place. But the bigger fear, more than this, is that there and all indications are that they are not going to stop at this line itself. They are going to push this line, the so-called unilateral changing of the status of the LAC, which they have done. They will keep pushing it more and more towards the west. So the only option for us is to hold them back, to sit tight in this face-off, and we continue to show our resolve by not letting them do what they want to do now. We should say this and no more. Beyond this, we shall not permit, come what may. And that is the only stance we need to maintain, talks or no talks. That is besides the point.
So, as we talk about talks, which I see as engagement rather than talks, it's just the two countries are engaged.
Yeah.
So I see this is a maybe bluff India into just complacency to keep talking and talking while they do military actions, and as you mentioned, they are making moves to capture more areas. And isn't it like we are being bluffed?
No, this was always the case. Chinese have been bluff masters. They are not to be trusted. We have been saying it all along. All the time that they are there, they will keep talking of things which will only give them their advantage. Now also, they have engaged us in the talks for a very simple reason that this is giving them time to strengthen their position. See it, we are already into September. October onwards, the snowfall will start in these areas. So no meaningful operations can be progressed.
Right.
Only good thing that has happened, very good thing that has happened now is that Indian Army, after absorbing the initial shock of Chinese ingress into all these places, 4 points that they have come, we have now been able to regain our composure. We have now been able to look through the Chinese game plan. And therefore, what we are now doing is that slowly we are also moving ourselves to the places of tactical advantage while we are in the face-off, so that tomorrow, should the situation deteriorate, and if we are required to move in for action, any kind of a military action that is being contemplated, then in that case, we will not be at a tactical disadvantage. And I will say only tactical disadvantage. As far as the strategic advantage is concerned, that Chinese have already gained. I don't think that in strategic terms, we are going to gain anything more or anything more than tactical. So at least let us believe that we will continue to maintain tactically strong postures which will deter Chinese PLA to carry out any further ingress than where they have already come. And this is all that I would expect, that we should be very clear about this aspect of our deployment and face-off that is going on right now. And this would be my recommendation as well.
So, are you suggesting that the Chinese, with whatever areas they have captured or ingress they have made, we won't be able to evict them?
No, we will not be able to evict them, at least in the limited time which is available to us right now. Like I told you that we are into September, and October onwards the weather becomes very bad in these areas. No meaningful offensive can take place. And if you are talking of next summer, then I think by then it's already too late, because by then these positions would have got so much strengthened that to build up so much of force and apply it against the defenses that would have been made by the PLA by then Even if we talk of our air power or we talk of any other kind of force multipliers that can be employed, I would say that my military sense tells me it will be well nigh impossible to push them back from these areas and get back to status quo ante as it was in April. It will not be possible. And we should not be sort of speculating that at any point of time it can be made possible by use of force. The only possibilities are that we take other measures and increase the cost for the Chinese diplomatically at the international level, and whatever else that the government is doing in terms of blocking or stopping all kinds of Chinese applications and trying to stop
back.
the imports from that country, hit back in terms of stopping the imports and all. But there again, let me tell you, Ajay, the total kind of a trade imbalance that we have with the Chinese,
It's huge.
I think in the bargain we will get hurt more than they getting hurt when we are trying to hurt them more in terms of on the trade front, because trade-wise we have got a very adverse trade balance with the Chinese. So I don't think we'll be talking very practical. Even if we do certain actions, a disadvantage will be more to us rather than to them, and that's the way I look at it.
So as you mentioned about other options we should explore, you talked about international community, mobilizing international community. What I have noticed is US has made some some comments, Australia made some comments. Otherwise, the international community has been kind of silent or mute spectator. So what can you
Yes.
do in here?
No, yes, and why not? I mean, all said and done, let's face it, that nobody will fight your war. No nation will fight your war. And today, Chinese have made the kind of ingress in all the countries in terms of their economic power, and in some cases, even the military power, that it is very difficult to sort of now play the game of kind of isolating them, because if you look at it, recently there was a news that they have gone in for around $400 billion kind of a aid with the Iran, and they are spreading themselves in our immediate neighborhood with Nepal, with Bhutan, with
Bangladesh.
Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Myanmar, so Pakistan. In fact, if at all, if you look at this move that they have made recently in Ladakh, this has got the biggest strategic implications of our existence with Pakistan or our relations with Pakistan or whatever conventional deterrence that we had against Pakistan, because now the China-Pakistan nexus stands fully exposed. In fact, there are some very unconfirmed reports which are coming in that maybe that there is a army officer from Pakistan who has also been nominated with the Chinese Military Commission to be a member or in some capacity to be present there. So all these kinds of things basically tell us that they have, by in their intervention in Ladakh, they have strengthened their relationship with Pakistan, and China-Pakistan nexus against India, if at all it is going to surface or it is going to show up anywhere in our on our borders, it is this area where we already have got a standoff with Pakistan in Siachen. Now we have a standoff with China in the Ladakh region, and all important China-Pakistan economic corridor (CPEC) also passes through just north of DBO. So taking all these things together, this is what has actually got fully exposed now as well the China-Pakistan relations against India are concerned.
In fact, I wanted to ask you the same question. Why Ladakh? Why not Arunachal? Why not Sikkim? Why Ladakh? I mean,
I
why
would
did
say,
China?
as indications are, Ajay, we are just waiting, sitting very tight. Whatever reports are coming in, I think we have taken defensive measures in Sikkim and Arunachal as well, because China would surely be eyeing for the Tawang area, and he has been talking about it for a very, very long time. Arunachal Pradesh, as you know, he's been trying to claim
Yeah,
entire Arunachal
that's what I'm
Pradesh,
saying. Why not Arunachal?
calling it South China Sea,
Yeah.
and calling it this area is almost 90,000 square kilometers. But you see, the point is that why he has intervened in this area first, one reason could be that it has got one of the BRI projects which is passing through Pakistan, that is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. If it is able to get complete security to China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, it will be able to link up the other countries in the region, particularly Central Asian republics, which is the underbelly of Russia, to this BRI. It already has got Afghanistan, which has been linked with this. Pakistan is already there. It would like to link Iran with it. So the economic stakes for them have been high as far as this area is concerned. The second reason could be that why Ladakh? By coming here, China is able to find an alternative route for its own sustenance, just in case Malacca Strait route is blocked by the international community and it is not able to maintain its shipping traffic through that. If that be the case, then it will be able to maintain itself from the ports of Daudar and Karachi by using this China-Pakistan economic corridor, because this highway is going to be made absolutely world class, and along with many other infrastructure along with it, and it's going to be a game changer as far as the China-Pakistan relationship are concerned, and China will be able to offset its geostrategic location disadvantage that it has presently to a great extent if it is able to get this shortcut to Gulf via CPEC. So I think this area to him was more important rather than Arunachal. And it's only a matter of time where, at least in diplomatic terms, it will try to now next sort of increase the heat for us in the east also very soon. And that's why, if you remember, when Army chief has come to Ladakh, the air chief has gone to Arunachal.
Eastern
So
Command,
therefore, the balance is being maintained as far as the alertness of the Indian armed forces are concerned, be it the army or the air force or navy at the Indian Ocean. Because if you read some reports, even in the Indian Ocean, we are being very watchful about Chinese movements and
Right.
their movement or their desire to convert Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, or Myanmar as the kind of maintenance ports after it has successfully converted Djibouti as one of the naval base for its interest. So going by all these developments, I think for him the advantage was in the west, which took a priority, and therefore it moved in at this point of time to secure its corridor, and also to give a message to Pakistan regarding its physical, moral, all kinds of support that it has been promising to them.
So if I may ask you, sir, did our planners fail to assess that this was the vulnerable part which Chinese could make moves anytime? So did we fail to assess anticipate maybe?
No, Ajay, it will be unfair to blame our leadership that they did not assess it. No, they did assess it. They did assess. They think very correctly, and that is the reason. If you recollect, we have been almost over 10 years now that we have been trying to upgrade the DBO as a composite base, and not only that, we landed AN-32 in I think 2006 or 2008. But we also have now, quite recently, we also landed C-130 Hercules aircraft there, which is a strategic lift aircraft. So we had appreciated very correctly that this area will, the threat perception in this area will get upgraded. And I would say we have moved in also pretty well, but for the fact that we did not expect Chinese PLA to take an initiative at this point of time when the world has been into crisis of the COVID, and the world has been fighting the pandemic of this magnitude, that the China, and particularly when our relationship with China were on the upswing, we really have been having some very good phase of India-China relations. And that is the time that they will try to spike this relationship in this manner. I think that appreciation somewhere was not there. And to that an extent, I think we have been surprised. But the good part is that after having got surprised, and now that we have read the Chinese game plan, we are fully alive and alert to the issue. And now we are not going to give them any advantage of any kind whatsoever. And let me tell you, Ajay, that if we remain firm on ground with the full resolve and determination that we will not let them move any further, they will not be having any, I would say, they will not have guts to even move forward, because Chinese troops have not been known to have a record of good fighters ever. And if you go by that historical fact of the Chinese, I don't think PLA, despite its modernization, which is going to be blunted in the mountain to a great extent, I think they are going to be at a disadvantage should they get involved in a mountain warfare with the Indian Army, which has got a tremendous track record as far as the mountain warfare is concerned. So I'm very certain that Chinese themselves will not be very comfortable to take the Indian Army on during this treacherous mountain terrain, which is height-wise varying between 14,000 to 16 to 17,000 feet. So my sense is that if we hold ourselves firm with the complete determination and will to not allow the enemy to move any further, I think we should look forward to pushing them, if not back, at least holding them at this point of time till they see a better sense of the whole situation.
So we are running out of time. So one last question I'll ask you.
Yes,
If there is a military action, a window is very narrow now, as you yourself mentioned.
Yeah. Yes.
So how capable are we, since you know the terrain? So how capable are we there?
Okay.
How efficient we are there?
No, I could get question. You will have to repeat it because I was not able. Your audio was not very clear. Yeah.
This is the last question. I want to ask you. See, the window,
Yeah.
as you said, if there is a military action we have to take to evict them militarily, the window is now
Yes.
very small, narrow. So, how
Small,
capable,
yeah.
how swift
Okay.
can we do that? Can we take some swift commando action or something to evict them before there is winter comes in, and maybe then by then we can recapture our whatever areas? Is that possible?
No, like I said, in mountains, if the only possibility now is that we, like we have done on 29th, 30th of August, that we have gone into those heights which are not yet occupied, and
Yeah.
which gives us a tactical advantage to overlook the Chinese. Like one of the heights we have occupied in the Spangor Gap gives us a peep into their Waldo camp, where the talks were being held earlier. So I would say only possibilities are more of a quid pro quo action rather than any hardcore action to get involved in one-to-one fight and evict them from the places that they have come and occupied. Because once in mountains, move in and occupy a particular area, thereafter it becomes very difficult to evict the enemy, because the resources required to evict the enemy or to evict the adversary from these mountain tops would be anything 6 to 7 times more than what that person has spent to occupy those hills. So that is the reason why I'm ruling out any major possibility of a military action as far as this summer is concerned. What happens a year later, by next summer, only time will tell as more inputs come in as to what is happening. Because even now, the reports are that Chinese as well as Indian side, both the sides have gone in for a mirror deployment with nearly 30 to 40,000 troops on the ground.
Right.
And let me tell you, to maintain even 30 to 40,000 troops on the ground all through the winter, that itself is a very Herculean task.
Right.
So, because of that reason, I am saying that the military option, as far as this summer is concerned, is nearly had run out.
So there is it's a huge road ahead. I guess it's a long
Yes.
haul. Thank you
Long
so much for participating in this debate, sir.
Thank you.
This is all in the agenda today. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another important topic on Monday. Till then, goodbye.